Hi there. My name is Trina, and I am a physical therapist. And I have created and teach the practical strength class for safely building strength and getting into those functional four motions of rowing, squats, lunging, and push ups or some form of push. So let's get started. I wanted to do this video today as an introduction. If you are just getting into the class, a lot of the class has been going on for a while, and so we might be doing a little more challenging or difficult things. The pacing's a little faster. So I wanted to offer this video today so that you could start to work along and build up the strength just like everyone else has done. So some of the tools that you might want if you have them around are a gym ball, if that's available for you, a foam roller, if you have one of those, some light weights, maybe hand weights. You actually don't really need weights today. Let's see, maybe a pillow as well, and a chair, a stable chair or a stable ottoman. And then I think that's about it. Oh, a hand towel. Hand towel would be great. So let's start out on the foam roller, and we're just going to lie on the foam roller. Now, lying on the foam roller seems like something that is so simple, but actually a lot of folks have difficulty getting onto this, particularly, especially if you haven't in the past gotten onto the roller. So you always want the roller when you're starting to use it to be lengthwise, lined up with your spine. So most people underestimate how long their spine is. So you can take and place the edge of the foam roller right at the edge of your hip, press down to just roll that roller underneath your hip. And then once you get it lined up with your sacrum and your tailbone, you can just roll back here. And then you're arriving. So the first thing we always do in class is just tune into the felt sensations in the body. So just begin by noticing how your breath feels, noticing which parts of your spine contact the roller that you're on. You also can do this on the ground today. So if you don't have a roller, just rest on the ground. Just begin to let your bones drop into the ground. Notice any muscle tension or soreness, and feel into your breath. Notice how your breath feels today. And as you breathe here, sometimes it's helpful when you're just starting to connect with your diaphragmatic breath to place your hands on your low ribs. And as you breathe in, you can think about feeling the belly and the ribs expanding as you breathe in. And then as you breathe out, feel your belly and your ribs falling back towards one another. And just do that a couple times, noticing that diaphragmatic breath. So our inhalation will expand the belly, expand the low ribs. And exhaling, everything draws back into the midline. We're going to do a couple more breaths like that, just tuning in to how the breath feels. Good. And now we always start out with a little bit of movement across our low back and pelvis. So the pelvis moves, and the low back, I should say, low back moves through three planes of motion. So we're going to do this first plane of motion. This is the most familiar plane. Imagine in your mind's eye that there is a plane of glass going from your right hip on the floor all the way up to the ceiling, and your left hip on the floor all the way up to the ceiling. And we're going to move in that direction. So this is your sagittal plane, this forward and back plane. As you inhale, you can move your low back away from the roller, the ground. And then as you exhale, gently draw your low belly towards your spine and imprint the small of your back into your roller. And so go back and forth here, moving gently, just noticing how this feels today. This will feel a little different each day you do it. Try to keep your neck soft and the back of your head is soft, jaw is soft. And it's nice to inhale as you soften your belly and rock forward, and exhale as you draw your tailbone gently under, drawing the deep abdominals on. Go back and forth maybe one more time here, inhaling and exhaling. And then find that place where you come to the center. So in the center of that motion, you should feel like your tailbone is quite heavy into the roller. You have a little gap behind your low back. Your ribs are heavy. You have a little gap behind the lower portion of your neck, and then your head is contacting again. So it's your neutral spine. You want to notice those curves every so often in class. We'll keep coming back to that. So now we're going to move in this side to side plane of motion. So now place a pane of glass along your back, sort of on top of your roller or on top of the ground, and then one right over the top of your body, kind of cutting through your femurs, cutting through your leg bones. And we're going to move in this side to side plane. This is our frontal or our coronal plane. So we're going to gently lengthen, reach your right hip down towards your right heel and open the space between the right ribs and the right hip. Take a breath in there. And as you exhale, come back, find your neutral spine. And then same thing other side. So inhaling, opening on the left, exhaling, coming back to neutral spine. Go back and forth with your breath here, feeling that gentle motion. It'll be different for everyone depending on flexibility of spine, depending on the day. There's no right or wrong way. What I say is kind of stretch until you feel like a whisper of tension or a whisper of stretch. And that's a good place to stop rather than like pushing really hard into it. Just gently move with your breath. And the next time you get through your second side, come back to the center, rest in the center there. Now, place both hands on each hip bone. If you're on your roller and you feel a little unsafe, just widen your feet apart. So both hands on the hip bones, you're going to take and gently draw your left hip bone back towards the ground. Right hip bone will go up towards the sky. Pause there. Come back to center. Find your midline again. I'll try that same thing other side. So right hip bone draws back, left hip bone draws up, and then you'll come back to center. And go back and forth, gently rocking your low back through these rotations, noticing how this feels. And you might notice like one side is easier to do than the other. And if you feel pretty balanced, you can bring your feet closer, not touch the ground. It's just a small rotational movement through the spine. Nourishing the cartilage, the facets, the intervertebral aspects of the joints and discs. So really hydrating that cartilage and those tissues. Good. Okay, let's pause here for a moment. Now, I want everyone to first notice just their ab brace. Let's do this on the ground for today. So I'm going to roll off of the roller. We'll set the roller aside. I think we're using it again today, but keep it close by just in case. Now, if you have a yoga block, I forgot to mention that at first, that would be great. If you don't have a yoga block, just use your hand towel. Just roll up your hand towel and use it for this next bit. So you're going to place your yoga block or hand towel between your thighs, just below your knees, closer towards your belly. Find your neutral spine straight away. So find where the back of your skull contacts the ground, your mid-back, your sacrum. Just take a few breaths there, feeling. Good. So just like we started with our breath, with your inhalation, you're going to gently expand three-dimensionally. Let the belly be soft. Let the pelvic floor soften. And as you exhale, you can begin to gently squeeze in on your block, gently squeezing and feeling that contraction start to build at the low belly. As you inhale, soften, let that go, release the squeeze. Expand the belly, expand the pelvic floor as you breathe in. And as you exhale, everything draws into the midline. You have that gentle squeeze in. So notice as you're doing that, if there's any tendency to kind of flatten the back. A lot of folks have a tendency to flatten the back here. Just let your back be nice and soft, no movement. This is just an isometric contraction we're starting to build. Squeezing, hugging in. And also the other thing with isometrics is you get to choose how much force you use. So nobody's making you go 100%. Nobody's making you go 1,000,000 miles an hour. So if you feel like you need to make this more subtle, maybe just do a contraction 10%, 20%. Try to find the place that feels good where you can feel that muscular initiation, that drawing in, and it's not painful at all and you have no movement anywhere. Good. And then we're going to let that go. Set the block to your side. Now we'll make our way up into our head and neck. So a really important exercise to start to introduce and strengthen some support in the deep anterior muscles of the neck is a chin tuck or a head nod. So if your shoulders feel okay with it, you can make a little pillow for the back of your head, that sort of bony part that sticks out the most. Just rest that in your hands. You can have your arms like an old school sit up. If that doesn't feel okay, just let your elbows come in a little bit, and that will alleviate some of the tension from your shoulders. Now we're going to do a gentle head nod. Yes. So you're going to imagine like there is a skewer right from your right ear all the way through to your left, and you're just going to rotate about that axis. So it's just a small amount of motion here, a really small head nod. Yes, hold and release, let it go. Another way of thinking of this is like you have a pencil on the tip of your nose that is pointing all the way up to the ceiling and is making a little line on the ceiling. So you do a gentle head nod. Yes, hold and release. Good. And again, gentle head nod. Yes, hold and release. So notice, keep going, and notice a lot of times when you do that gentle head nod, the whole of your neck will flatten. Try not to let that happen. Some folks also will flatten their low back. So make sure that there's no movement anywhere else in your spine, just at this very quiet upper neck area. We just have this very gentle head nod. Yes. Good. Do two more. And last one. Good. And then release. Let that go. Relax. Let's make our way onto our bellies. So I'm going to introduce this idea, use this a lot in our class, of I's and T's. They're strengthening exercises for the muscles right between your shoulder blades. And so they really are the support for your head and neck when you're standing upright, but also when you're doing your rows and your push-ups. This is an area that really undergoes a lot of loss of awareness for many people as they have neck pain or shoulder pain. So you're going to use your towel roll. I forgot to mention, if you have neck pain or shoulder pain, a better place to start is even on your back. And with these exercises, you can go through the same thing I'm going to cue. You'll just be on your back, so facing up to the sky, starting with the arms just away from your sides a little bit, and our eyes finding your neutral spine. Gently draw your shoulder blades towards one another, pressing gently back of the hands into the ground. Head, neck, throat, belly, chest, nothing else moves, just that area between the shoulder blade. So again, you can gently draw the shoulder blades back and towards one another, pressing back of arms down into the ground. Palms are up. Okay, so I want to show this as well in the belly. Many folks can do this on the belly. You may need a pillow under your belly if you have any discomfort lying on your belly. Just going to make a little towel roll for our foreheads. So I make about an inch towel roll, place it under my forehead, keep my neck long, and I'm going to reach my fingertips down towards my toes. Now, I draw my low belly up and in and engage my glutes a little to lengthen my tailbone. Then I draw shoulder blades up and in, and then I hover my arms and hold, releasing the hands, releasing the shoulders, release belly, release glutes. Try that again. Belly, glutes, shoulder blades, hold. Relax arms, relax shoulder blades, relax belly, relax glutes. Belly, glutes, shoulder blades, hold. Release, relax. So a lot of people feel like they're moving a lot here, but they actually aren't. So if you're uncertain what is happening here, if you can't feel your shoulder blades moving into the midline, keep your fingertips on the ground. They can kind of help guide your shoulder blade motion in. I've done a lot of this work today already, so I'm just going to show a few. Keep going for about 8. Okay. Eyes. And then the next thing you'll do either on your belly or on the ground is bring your arms up into a T position. Lift your low belly, lengthen your tailbone, draw the shoulder blades up and in, and maybe hover the arms. Hold, release the arms, release the shoulder blades, release the belly and glutes. Belly, glutes, engage. Low or mid back comes in, shoulder blades drawing to the midline. Hold and hover. Release the arms, release the scapula, release your belly and glutes. Try that again. Hold and release and relax sequentially. Low belly, glutes, shoulder blades together. Hover, release, and relax. Good. Maybe one more time. Low belly and glutes engage. Draw the shoulder blades towards one another. Hover the arms. Hold. And then relax. Let the arms go. Beautiful. Plenty of those for today. Okay. Moving on. So we use a lot of those to help build shoulder blade strength. If those feel very unusual, make sure that you practice those. So with that same notion on hands and knees, if it feels okay to weight bear, you can line your hands up under your shoulders and line your knees up under your hips. Let me just tuck my shirt in for a little bit. So feel when you're on your hands and knees, that same thing we just did. So see if you can feel shoulder blades move together, shoulder blades move apart, and find the place where they are in the middle of both of those extremes. Once you find that, lift your low belly up and in. Keep the back of the neck long. And my gaze is kind of in the center between my two hands, right, maybe like 2 inches in front of my hands. Now we're going to shift our weight into our right leg to lift the left leg behind us. Left leg lifts directly out of the glutes. Make sure that your toes are facing the ground. They can be pointed, that's fine, but you don't want to be rotated out so the toes are rotating out. So sometimes you have to look back. Check your back foot. Now, if that left leg is lifted, maybe you can begin to lift the right arm. Hold and breathe here. Every time you inhale, get a little longer. Every time you exhale, draw the low belly up and in a little bit more. Good. One more breath. Lower down. Let's do the same thing on the other side. So low belly comes up and in. You can find, again, the place where your shoulder blades feel nice and neutral. They're right balanced in between. Shift your weight into your left leg. Reach the right leg out behind you. Pause and breathe here. Might need to check back. Make sure that your toes are facing straight down. Kneecap is pointed down. And begin to lift that left arm. Palm faces inward towards the head. Soften the top of the left shoulder and breathe here. Every time you inhale, you get a little longer in your spine. Every time you exhale, you draw your low belly up and in a little more. Good. 1 or 2 more breaths. Lowering down, pausing, breathing, and just feeling for that for a moment. Let's do one more time. One more round of those. These are called bird dogs or pointing dogs, which makes sense. It looks like a pointing dog. You see these across every discipline. This is part of the beginning of Stuart McGill's safe core support or core building. So I always love to include these right at the beginning. Again, check and make sure this is safe for your shoulders. If you have any kind of shoulder issues, you always can leave both hands down. Bring your knees together, lengthen and lift that left leg. Neutral rotation through the hip. Back of the glutes are engaged, low belly's up and in. And when you're ready, add the right arm. Good. You can close your eyes here to kind of challenge your balance a little bit. Make sure that you're imagining like you have a tea set on your back that you don't want to spill. And lower down. Good. Let's do the same thing on the other side. So lengthening through the other leg. Reach that leg up behind you. When you're ready, we're going to lift maybe that left arm. Low belly's up and in. Back of the neck is long. Maybe close your eyes if you did so on the first side. And lowering down. Good. And coming to rest on our backs. So this next exercise is also for the abs. And this is probably the one during the class that people had the most difficulty with keeping it out of the neck. You're going to recruit your neck muscles a little bit, but this is really for your deep belly. So you're going to lengthen your right leg on the ground, keep your left bent. take one hand, helps if it's maybe your right hand, and just feel for the space in the small of your back. Okay. Now take that hand and find the edge of your sternum. So find where your sternum kind of dives down into your belly. So this is the area that's going to be moving. Okay. This area and your low back is going to be super still. So keep your hand in the small of your back at first, and then we'll switch our hands. One hand can stay behind the head. Take a nice breath in here. As you exhale, lift your shoulders and head stays in the hands. No movement of the low back. Inhale, come down. So feel how that low back really wants to squash down into the hand. Don't let it. You can always now, you can keep that arch in the small of your back. You can always take your hand and feel for that end of your sternum, the end of your breastbone, moving there. And these are a supportive way to do crunches that are not destructive for some of the passive structures around the spine. These are neutral spine crunches. Good. Let's go ahead and switch sides, switching hands. Now, if you feel like you have enough awareness of your low back, you can just keep your hands behind your head. But if you're just new at this, it's really helpful to take and feel the space in the small of the back while you do these. Take a nice breath in. Exhale to come up, moving at the base of the sternum. The leg that's down is neutral, so the toes are facing the sky, the kneecaps facing the sky. Nothing's rolling out to the left or turning into the right. You can do about 10 on each side, feeling that stability and strength without destruction. Good. And rest. All right, great. So we're going to work on some hip strengthening next. So for our hip series, this is the beginning of what we call the hip series. This first time, let's start out with bridges and leg lifts and clams. So for our clams and leg lifts, sometimes it's helpful to use a wall like this to line up against. You're going to rest. Let's see, I'm going to lie on my right side. My left leg will be up. I can use a little pillow of my right arm for my head. And I'm going to think about lining up the back of my skull with the back of my buns with the bottom essentially of my feet. My right leg, I'll step forward like I'm taking a big step on the ground. On my top leg, I will straighten. Now, right from here, this is kind of a balance challenge. A lot of folks will start to turn their top toes up. So I don't know if you can see that in the video, but I'm turning my toes way up to the sky. What you want to think about is actually turning your toes slightly down towards the ground. Okay. When you do that, you might be able to feel the outside of your hip, your glute muscles kick on a little bit more. This is your glute medius. So once you find that, once you feel that, that'll be a little different for everyone's body. You're going to make really small lines here, just using that muscle. Try not to bend the knee. Try not to change anything else. What you'll notice when you're on the ground is that your side waist that's on the ground really wants to collapse into the side to help you with this. Try to keep that waist up. Try not to let that waist touch the ground. You always can take a hand, and just like we did with our low back, you can feel for any collapsing happening there. Tuning into that. I'm starting to get tired. This is my second time doing these exercises today. Good, maybe one more. So going for about 10 of these side leg lifts. They're like really controlled Jane Fondas. And then relax, stack up your knees, bottom of the feet, back of the hips, back of the skull, all line up together. Again, you can use your top hand to monitor what's happening with your waist here. And this time you're just going to lift your top knee. Now, everyone really likes to add resistance with this one. It's a great one to add resistance on. You just put a band on top of sort of around your thighs, bind your thighs together, and you can press up into that resistance. This is strengthening now the deep external rotators of the hip, both on the way up and on the way down. So controlling on the way up, controlling on the way down. And about 10. That had to be about 10. And then we'll make our way onto our backs. So coming onto the back, Feel for your neutral spine here first. Just notice head. Notice how your neck lifts a little away from the ground. Notice your rib cage into the ground. Notice that light little lift of the small of your back, and then your pelvis should be a little heavy into the ground again. So keep your neutral spine. You're going to push your feet down into the ground. Squeeze your glutes to make this movement happen, and you'll pick your hips up, coming up into a nice bridge. Hold for a moment, lower down. Good. So it's nice to actually have the palms up here, broad through your collarbones, coming up and coming down. And I like to exhale as I come up. As I come down, I kind of just hover my hips. I don't totally collapse as I come down. Kind of keep a little energy, a little abdominal lift, a little pelvic floor lift, keeping the spine as neutral as possible, getting as much action at the glutes as possible. If you're unsure if your glutes are working for you, just poke them. If you poke them, you can feel if they're contracting or not. Even if there's some soft tissue overlying that muscle contraction, you can really start to feel it. Do about 3 more, and then we'll do our other side. Good. And then we're going to flip over. Same thing, other side, starting with side leg lifts and progressing through. So starting on our side, we'll line up back of head, pick a little pillow, line up your sacrum, line up the bottom of your feet. You can step that low leg up like you're taking a big step. Bottom leg stretches out. Now, right from here, make sure that your toes are not forcing their way up. I really want to do that. We're all stronger in the front of our hip than we are in the back. So you want to try to bias this to the back of your hip. Somebody once said, if I want to bias this to the back of my hip, how come I don't rotate that out? And you can kind of feel when you do that, when you rotate your leg out, you start to kick in this muscle in the front. It's called the TFL. When you start to internally rotate, then you have to use the glute medius. And you can feel that yourself, right? You can just try a couple. If you're ever uncertain, wait, what did that lady say? Just internally rotate that top leg. Take your top hand and register what's happening at your side waist. So notice if you are collapsing into the ground and kicking that leg up. We don't want to do a lot of that side bending in the spine. You know, if you're side bending, you want to do that when you're doing what you love, like, I don't know, water skiing or snowboarding. But you don't want to tear your spine down when you're trying to strengthen and train it. There's just no point for that. Nothing good comes from that. There's no need for it. And good. Now coming into the clown. So feet stack up, back of the hips, back of the rib cage, back of the skull. Keep the belly button facing the ground as we start to elevate that top knee. Now I've had some people ask, why don't we lift the knees? Why don't we lift the feet as we do this? I know that's the case in Pilates sometimes. Really, it's only because I want to move as few things as possible. I want the ground to be a source of feedback for us, where we are in space. So use your leg on the ground so you can feel what your bottom waist is doing. As soon as your feet come up, it's kind of differently challenging. I actually think it's easier to stabilize the waist when the feet are up. So keep your bottom waist nice and stable. And we're going to do one more set of our bridges. Now, if you have an elastic band, bridges are super great to do with a band above the knee. So you might place the band just above both knees. Come on down onto your side, lie onto your back, find your neutral spine. Once you find your neutral spine, take a nice breath in. And you're going to exhale, push through your feet, squeeze your buns, lift up, come up, inhale, come down. Exhaling up, inhaling down. Good, keep going. We'll do about 10. 3, and come down and rest. Good. We are getting close to the end of our first time, our first class. So those are the hip and the beginning of the shoulder work. And I want to show you one more shoulder exercise, and we're also going to do some of our foot and ankle exercise, and we'll do a balance activity. So let's do shoulders next. I'm going to use my chair for our shoulder work. And I'm going to demo this today with weights and without. So see it sitting down. You can also do this standing. But sitting is kind of a nice way to do it since we haven't done a lot of footwork yet. Put your spine in neutral. So just like we did on the ground, see if you can feel the place where your sacrum, your rib cage, back of your skull all line up. Right? We've done that so many times today in all these different positions. You should be able to start to orient around that a little bit more. So neutral spine. Your abs can engage just a little bit here. And I'll start with your arms at your sides, either standing or seated. And we're going to exhale, we'll lift our arms in a V. So my arms are not directly in front of me. They're not directly at my side. They're right in between. They're sort of cutting the distance. And what I can feel when I put them in the right place is it sort of feels like easier. Feels easier to hold them. This is your scapular plane of motion. They're a little stronger through this plane of motion. And what we're doing as we do this exercise is we're really working to strengthen one of the deltoid muscles and one of the rotator cuff muscles, the supraspinatus. This is such a good one to work on. The hands just come up only about as high as the shoulders, and then you control down. So neutral spine here is really important. A lot of times at the gym, you'll see people doing this lift heavy. They'll be standing and they'll thrust their whole back into it. That's a whole different exercise. That is a whole different thing. They might even be doing some kind of snatch, who knows? So yeah, we're not doing that. We're really isolating. So you can try with some weights. Always keep your weights light on these ones. I wouldn't go beyond, these are 3s, right? So I wouldn't really go up a lot higher than that, because as soon as I start to create distance from the spine, I really increase the demand, right? So if my arms were shorter and I was doing this with a shorter lever arm, it'd be a lot easier. But just because of the length of the lever arm, it's a lot harder. Keep the neck and jaw and throat soft, and keep your gaze soft and straight ahead. Good, couple more. Excellent. All right, so about 2 sets of 10, 2 sets of 8 of the scaption. So really starting to build the muscular awareness around the rotator cuff and around the muscles between the shoulder blades. Now moving on, let's do some footwork and in preparation of our balance. So let me put this down. It might be a little easier to see my feet. I know I have on my channel a foot video. So if you want to go there, that is helpful for specifically working with the feet. I am going to, though, do a little bit of footwork here before we do a standing exercise and a balance exercise. So see if you can separate your 10 toes. See if you can see carpet or space between each of your 10 toes, and then relax that and let that go. And then try that again. Try to separate, spread your 10 toes, lay them flat, and then release that, let that go. Now, as you're watching your feet, make sure that, you're not getting into that habit of like poor posture. You can always keep your back straight and lean forward a little bit just to look and see what your feet are doing. If you cannot move your big toes towards one another at all, if that just feels impossible, you always can use something like an elastic band or like your yoga strap to help bring the big toes towards one another as you do this. Yeah. And then you're just sort of physically helping them with a little support. You still get the good activation. You just get a little bit of an assist. Try to plant your toes each time you do this. So try not to let your toes hover in the air. Let the toes be planted. So about 10, 15, 10, really starting to feel that little muscle that it lives right in that inside portion of the toe. Helps to keep the toe in place and helps to support our arch. Now we're going to work on that arch a little bit more. So keep your 10 toes flat on the ground, hopefully straight ahead. And what you're going to do here is lift the arch. So I'll show you just with one foot. It's a little easier to see. I lift the arch. It's like I take the bottom of the foot and just lift it away from the ground. Another way of saying that is like foot shortening. So I'm shortening my foot and then I'm letting it be long again. I'm just lifting the muscular arch on the undersurface of the foot, and then I'm relaxing and letting it go. I'm trying to keep the toes kind of relaxed as I do this. They're going to naturally want to curl and help you. But see if you can keep your toes mostly out of it. Mine are kind of jumping on board, but they're mostly staying out of it. So both feet at the same time, feeling that support, and that is called doming, foot doming. You're activating your intrinsic muscles. You're activating and lifting the arches of your feet. It's really important to feel that. We're going to feel that and engage that as we come up to standing. Good. Maybe one more time. And then relax. Good. So set your towel aside and make sure that you have a chair or something for balance. We're going to do some balance work, and we're going to do an exercise up on our feet. So align your body up, neutral spine. Okay, once you find your neutral spine, engage your pelvic floor a little bit, engage your deep abdominal muscles, your belly muscles a little bit. So try to rise straight up onto your tiptoes and lower straight down so that the whole of your foot can rest on the ground. So come up and come down. And just do that a couple times. Make sure that feels okay. Now, if that feels all good, you can always try that on one leg, coming straight up and coming all the way down. Strengthening and building that calf muscle, so crucial for us for our balance. Right? Feeling that weight roll from the whole of your foot and the heel all the way into the big toe especially, right? About 10 on each side. It's really creating a lot of strength for our calves, which helps support us when we are running, when we're jumping, when we're standing on one leg. So really important muscles to nourish. Let's go ahead and do the other side. And if one at a time feels too much, or if you can only lift through a portion of your full range, just stick with the 2 feet. Keep working on that for a while. You'll notice I'm lightly touching the chair. You don't want to be like using the chair to vault. You also, I see this a lot of times, like this rocking forward and back so that people start to use their momentum. Try not to do that. You want to imagine like I just have a string at the top of your head that I'm pulling you up and lowering you back down on. So up and down. This foot ankle's a lot more tired. We do 3 more. And last one. Good. And rest. Okay, keep your chair close by. You want a stable chair so that you can hold on to it for balance if you need to. Now bring your 2 feet together, all the way together. And you can have a hand out on your chair or have both arms cross your chest. And so you're going to imagine like you're standing on a clock face. And in front of you is 12 o'clock, and back of you is 6 o'clock. To your right side is 3, to your left side is 9. Okay? So you're going to keep your 2 feet together and rock towards 12 o'clock and come back up to center. And so I'll show you from the side. I'm going to rock towards 12, and then I'll come back to center. And then you're going to rock back towards 6. I can't go very far towards 6. And then come back to center. So you'll feel the weight shift into your toes and then center, and then into your heels and then center. And try the same thing side to side. So rock to your left and center, and rock to your right and center. Good. And try that a couple times. Eyes open. Feel that shifting of weight across your feet and ankles. Let your feet and ankles respond. And now try that same thing with your eyes closed. So close your eyes, rock into 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock and 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock. And I really have to go much smaller when I close my eyes. So just feeling how those boundaries of your balance might change. Good. And maybe one more time, different directions, 12 and 6, 3 and 9. Feeling for that change and shift across your feet. Good. And then the next thing we're going to do is a tandem balance. So you can take your right foot and place it directly in front of the left. Okay, so heel to toe, arms stay crossed. Start with your eyes open, and then you can close your eyes. I feel really wobbly here. If you're doing okay with the eyes closed, you can begin to turn your head. Whoa, that's almost too much for me. Gently turning your head to the right and left as you stay steady. I'm just going to work eyes closed, one foot in front of the other. If you have a half a foam roller, you can do this on the half a foam roller. I really suggest starting with the eyes open. Good. And then go ahead and open your eyes and switch sides. So right foot in back, left foot in front. Start with eyes open, get your balance there. Once you feel pretty well balanced, you can go ahead and close your eyes. Think about spreading those toes. So toes wide, ankles stable. Listen to the feedback from your feet about what you need to do to adjust your balance. Maybe add your head turns. And then that's it. Go ahead and relax, and you can open your eyes and take a break. So that is a great beginning start to our classes. You can work on feeling for your shoulder blade movement, feeling for your hip strength building, working on your balance, and also those couple neutral spine strengthening exercises. So that's it for our first class. If you need to stretch, you can access my video for stretching the lower extremity. I have 2 of those. But otherwise, that's it for today. I'll see you guys next time. Take care.